All right, well, hey everybody. Thank you guys for kind of joining this college recruitment webinar with the Iota Golf guys. I just hit record just so you guys know this is being recorded. For those of you who don't know, I'm Ryan Shaw with the Junior Players Tour. I think most of you kind of have met me or we've done some stuff in the past together, but thank you guys very much for joining this. It's going to be a pretty good and interesting session. Like I was just saying, I've just kind of heard from a few of the parents that are just currently going through it, and it's quite an interesting process. So I'll throw it over to Kim and Scott here, and they'll kind of take over from here.
Right on. Thanks, Ryan. All right. Well, we're going to dive right into this. There's quite a bit of stuff that we want to get through, and so we're going to talk about that. Before we kind of introduce what we're talking about and how we're going to talk about it, just give you a little background on Scott and I. So Scott's gone through this process before of the college recruiting from both a player perspective and a coach perspective. So he played NCAA, he's former team captain at SFU, and he was an assistant coach at SFU here this past year. And for those who don't know, SFU is an NCAA Div 2 school. So he's got a really good knowledge of the whole recruiting process. And I've been an assistant coach for 7 years, doing mental skills with the athletes that I work with at SFU, and have been involved in the recruiting process from beginning to end. So identifying players, selecting them, all that stuff. And then I work extensively with junior athletes on the mental skills side and transitioning into college. So we've got a pretty extensive background. We've seen pretty much everything you're going to see on the recruiting side of things, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. All right. So in terms of what we're going to talk about, our hope today is that by the end of this session here, you're going to have a better understanding of what your options are in terms of playing at the college level. You'll get a handle on some of the myths that we see pretty commonly around college recruiting. And then we're going to introduce what we consider to be the real recruiting process here, that if you understand this, it's going to make the recruitment experience a lot better for you. And then we'll talk specifically about like how you go through that process so you can get recruited and end up playing on a college team. At the tail end of this, we're going to introduce a resource that we have that we've developed here at One Iota, and it's basically a player profile. So Scott will be walking you through that. And then hopefully we got a little time there at the end for any questions and answers that might come up as well. So for some of you, maybe this is brand new. You haven't thought about this or haven't gotten very far into this yet. For others, maybe you've already been actively engaged. But college recruiting, the whole recruiting process itself, it's complicated. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But we don't think it should be a scary process. So what we're going to talk about today, hopefully we can eliminate any of that concern about the process, make it a little more clear for you, and help go through the process so that you can be successful in getting onto a college program.
So really quickly, for those of you that don't know, we'll introduce what some of the college options are. A lot of you will be familiar with the NCAA. The NCAA has three divisions, so essentially three different tiers. In Division One, those are your bigger name schools that a lot of people would recognize really quickly. A lot of those programs are prioritizing the athletics above the school. Obviously, that depends on the institution, but generally speaking, the athletic programs are very highly prioritized and really invested in from the university and also from the students and the student athletes. Division two, still a very, very competitive level of golf. Depending again on the institution that you're in, it is more of a blend of golf and school, where Kim and I are both involved as assistant coaches. Simon Fraser University, a very, very strong academic school, but then also very competitive in the NCAA still. Now, Division three, still an NCAA division, but there are no athletic scholarships available in Division three. So the priority is a lot more on the academic side of things. They still have very competitive programs, but generally speaking, you will see athletes who are more interested in prioritizing their university degrees after they've graduated, end up in Division three schools to continue to compete at a really high level, but prioritize school. Now, here are some further options for university if you don't initially start out in the NCAA or decide the NCAA isn't the best route for you. NAIA schools are smaller than NCAA institutions, but still very competitive. They still compete across the nation. The University of British Columbia is an NAIA school. It's the only one that's not inside the United States. Otherwise, all other NAIA competitions are in the States. Still very competitive, just slightly smaller institutions. Now, the NJCAA is the National Junior College Athletic Association. And junior colleges, or JUCOs as you might hear them referred to, are two-year programs. Now, you will not get a full university degree from these two-year programs. The goal of these programs and these institutions is to allow athletes to essentially take a smaller step between high school and a full-blown university institution. So the entire purpose of the junior college is to transfer into a different program. So either you spend 1 year or 2 years and then move on to a school that you will be able to continue to compete and then complete your degree. And then the final option to be able to play in North America are U Sports. And what U Sport is just across Canada. So these are your Canadian schools. Again, because as everyone on the webinar will know, in Canada, the golf season is quite a bit shorter, so the competitive season is also shorter, but you get a very good university education being at a U Sport institution.
Scott, just quickly, roughly how many U schools are there, U Sport schools are there?
There's in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 U Sport schools that you could play on a golf program and still be in a university competing in U Sport. So that was a great point and a good reminder. Thanks, Kim. We're going to move into some myths here, some really common misconceptions that people have, and then we'll go over what the real situations are in these next few scenarios here. So the first big myth now, many of you will recognize the name, image, and likeness acronym, the NIL acronym. Um, Many people believe that scholarships and NIL are going to pay for your schooling completely. Now, the reality there is that there are very few players who are given NIL money, so essentially being given these types of bursaries. The two most prominent people who have gotten those recently are Ludwig Oberg, who's now a top 10 player in the world, and Roseanne, who's also now a top 10 player in the world on the LPGA Tour. It's best to assume that there are not going to be significant scholarships available because it is very rare that significant amount of money are being handed out.
All right. Myth number 2, recruiting is complicated, confusing, and requires a lot of luck. The reality here, and I talked about it a little bit already, yeah, it's complicated, but it doesn't have to be confusing. There is a process that's proven. If you follow it, it's going to work. It'll get you an opportunity to play in a college program. It'll make the odds of success a little higher and the process much easier for you to follow. And we'll introduce that process today. The next myth here is schools are going to find you. And the reality is this just isn't typically going to happen. So coaches are super busy. They're engaged in a lot of things. Coaches in most programs have very little time for recruiting. You're going to need to do the work to get on the radar. So outside of the top Div 1 and a handful of other Div 2 schools, for the most part, programs don't have extensive resources to engage in seeking out players through the recruiting process. On top of that, if you're not one of the top players already in your province or nationally ranked, like you're just going to struggle to be on the radar of those coaches unless you're reaching out directly to them. So you're going to have to do that work to reach out. Next myth here, this is a numbers game. You reach out to as many schools as possible and you bombard them with information. The reality is, yes, you're going to have to reach out to some schools, but you want to be really selective and tailor your communication to each school. So coaches are getting a lot of inquiries about playing at the school. They're getting submissions from potential players, potential candidates to be on their program. And they're quickly going to eliminate you if they feel like the information you're sending to them sounds generic and you didn't do your research to understand the school and how you might be a good fit within that school and their program.
A great example of that too, Kim, is Keegan Bradley, who is a multiple PGA Tour winner, won a bunch in university as well. Him and his father reached out to over 40 different NCAA schools and didn't hear back from the vast majority of them and didn't get accepted into any of them. He ended up going to St. John's University, where he won 9 times in college before turning professional. But through a numbers game approach, he just blanket contacted a bunch of schools and didn't hear back from any of them, even though he was a very competitive junior and obviously was a very good player to be able to win as many times as he did in university.
Yeah.
All right, the next myth It's really scary and intimidating to talk to coaches, and rejection means that you're not good enough. The reality there is that rejection sucks. Yes, absolutely. Not every single program is going to be a fit for you, and you may not be a fit for specific programs as well, but you need these no's to eventually get to the yes. It's just a part of the process, and you need to be prepared to hear a no, and also give a no if the fit isn't correct for you either. The next myth, another common one, is if I don't hear from a coach, they don't want me. Coaches should respond right away. The reality there is coaches are extremely busy. Initial contacts are going to be one way, and that will be from you as the player to the coach. The timing matters in this sense. When a coach is in their competitive season, they will be away and on the road and have limited access to the internet and to their emails, even though we live in such a digital age now. You will need to continuously update, even if you don't hear back initially. It doesn't mean that coaches aren't interested. It quite literally is oftentimes that they're just too busy to get to their emails.
Yeah, and just to reiterate that point from Scott, like they are extremely busy. It's hard to express how busy they are. It's a full-time plus job for coaches. So they're squeezing in opportunities to reach out or contact people or get back to them. So don't be surprised by that at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great reminder. Thanks, Cam. It does take time. And so that just means that you need to stay persistent and continue to update because it's not a lack of interest that's keeping you from hearing back from these coaches. All right, the next myth, only golf matters. The reality is everything matters. Academics matter, extracurriculars matter, having other sports backgrounds matter, and then your own personal character matters as well. Golf and university includes a lot of different aspects other than just specifically the golf. So being a well-rounded human being and a well-rounded person is not only going to benefit you, but is also critical to the recruiting process to demonstrate how ready and prepared you are to join a program. Now everyone will be familiar with social media, and most people now have a golf-specific Instagram and expect that teams will only be paying attention to golf-related posts. The reality here is the golf world is a very small, tight-knit community, and coaches will be able to find what else is going on social media. You just need to be aware of your interactions in this space because it happens all too often that a sort of flippant gesture that you may not expect means a whole lot ends up being a big deal later on. So this is again, just be mindful of what you're posting, be mindful of what you're saying, and as always, be respectful of your peers and your friends.
Yeah, just to add to that really quickly, Scott, as well, the people you know outside of this coach, who you may or may not know personally, are also watching your social media. And that includes the players that are on an existing team already. And lots of times information gets back to a coach through other sources.
The next myth, the need to be perfect. Your golf swing needs to be in a great spot. You need to have an awesome resume and have tons of really high results and a great video interview. The reality here is coaches know that you'll have good days and bad. There is no benefit to hiding bad numbers or poor scores because coaches will value being able to see how you respond to setbacks and roadblocks that you experience. Those are all just parts of life. You will not play fantastic golf every single time you go out for the rest of your life. That's just not what happens.
Yeah, in fact, as coaches, we want to see that. We want to see how you respond when things aren't going your way and what you're going to be like then when that happens inevitably when you're on a college team.
And then our final myth here is that you need to put on a show to impress college coaches. The reality here is the best way to stand out is to just be yourself. When you're in a university, and when you're on a team as close-knit as golf teams tend to be, there is very little space for you to hide and put on a show. It will be in your best interest to be yourself and go through the process, understanding exactly what it is that's going to help you be successful and highlighting the things that make you unique.
All right. So now we shared the myths and the reality. We're going to talk about how recruiting actually works. And we see recruiting as a four-phase process. So phase one, you got to clarify. Phase two, you expand. Phase three, you narrow. In phase four, you commit. And I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about what each of these phases looks like, and then we'll dig into a real detail on each of them. So from general perspective, phase one, clarify, you can see there it's reflect, identify, and document. What that really means is like, this is the foundation of getting recruited. So it's about getting clear on what's important to you, finding out what you want, and reflecting on what you want out of your college experience. That's what clarify phase one is. It's really, really critical. Phase two, the expand side, so gather, assess, and list. What we're talking about here is you're trying to find out or discover what's going to be possible for you in a college setting. So you're gathering information on potential schools, whether they're a good fit for you or not. Are they connected to the type of experience you want to have as an athlete? And by the end of this phase, you want to create a list of possible schools that you can explore in more detail. Phase three here is the narrow phase. So this is about contacting schools, filtering information and potential schools, and then adjusting your plan a little bit or your list. This is really about taking this big list that you create in phase two and then discussing things with the coaches, with the programs that are existing there. So you're actually learning what the reality is so you can narrow it down into a handful of your top most likely choices. And then we get into phase four, which is commit. So we connect with the program that we're interested in or the programs that we're really interested in. We accept or reject offers, and then we continue or make sure that we're communicating on a consistent basis with that program and that coaching staff. This is really about making a final decision, committing to that program, and then starting that process of building a really positive relationship with college coaches and your future teammates. Okay, so now we're going to walk into more detail around phase one, clarify, and the very first step here is what we call reflect. And reflect, you just basically need to spend time reflecting on a few key things so you can create the experience you want when you get to the college level. This includes thinking about what's most important to you in that college experience. So what do you want? What are you hoping to have as an experience there from both a golf perspective and an education perspective? One of those might be more important to you than the other. Maybe there's specific things you're looking for. You might want to compete for a national championship. The reality is not every school is going to compete for a national championship. So you need to be really clear on what you're trying to achieve. You're also looking at what your ultimate goal is in terms of college and beyond. So as I just mentioned, you might be looking to compete in a national championship. Not every school is kind of built or designed to be doing that. And what do you want to do beyond? Is your education and getting a career and something outside of golf going to be what you're chasing? Or are you trying to turn pro and chase the golf dream? You need to be aware of that. On top of that, what are your strengths and weaknesses as an academic or as a student, I should say, and as a golfer? What are you good at? What do you struggle with? You need to be aware of that as well. And this last category here is you need to be aware of what we call limitations or restricting factors. So maybe there's some financial limitations. Maybe there's going to be some physical limitations or location limitations. In other words, you've got to live someplace that's really, really warm, or you can't live someplace that's high in humidity or super warm. You've got to be someplace that's more moderate, or maybe you need to be close to your family, or maybe you want to be far away from your family. There's going to be some things there that you're going to have to consider. And what's important after this reflection phase is you have a list of things that you've identified, you've written them down. But you know your must-haves, your things that are pretty important, and then your nice but not necessary things.
So next, we're going to dig in a little bit more into some of the wants and desires that you need to be able to clarify on. Kim briefly introduced this, talking about what you actually want out of your university experience, whether that's golf specific, education specific, social even. So assessing whether or not you want to pay attention to the team culture that exists as well, the location that the university is, and then the facilities as well. The one of the most important things that you need to pay attention to when you do this is identifying what you actually want in this moment. It's really easy to get carried away thinking about what you may want to do 5 years down the road, what you may want to do at the end of your university degree. What's really, really valuable is taking the time to identify exactly what it is you want right now. Now, those wants and desires can change throughout your university degree. When I began my university degree, I originally was planning on going to law school. And I went to an institution that allowed for development and really helped me hone in on both the education and the athletic side of things. And by the end of my time, I wanted to pursue professional golf, and that's what I did. So being clear on what it is that you want to do in the moment is going to give you the best opportunity to find the best fit for you.
Yeah, just again to add to that a little bit there, Scott, like things like location, you really do need to spend a lot of time thinking about that. Do you want to be in a big center versus a small center? Do you want to be near the coast or near the mountains, or that doesn't matter to you? Climate. And you want to be aware of what the culture is like in whatever community you're targeting. It will be very different from one location to the next. For instance, if you're from a big center like Toronto, vibrant, fast-paced, a lot of activity going on, we've had athletes come to SFU in Vancouver, and even though Vancouver is a big city, it's considerably different from kids who grew up in a major center like Toronto. And it can be a really tough transition if they're not aware of what it's going to be like before they get out here.
So this next piece is taking some of those wants and desires that you have clarified on in the current moment and taking that a step further and assessing what your ultimate goal is. Again, Kim introduced this early on, just discussing phase one at a higher level. Is college golf the pinnacle of where you want your competitive career to be? If that's the case, that's going to influence some of the decisions that you make when it comes to looking at institutions. Is college just a stepping stone? Is that a stepping stone into turning professional and competing on the PGA Tour or the LPGA Tour? Or is that turning professional to become a teaching professional, a member of a PGA of America or Canada? Um, or do you want to continue to have golf as a serious amateur competitive experience or golf as a lifestyle? Those are all really important factors that will help you, again, identify some of the pieces that are going to make selecting a university a more streamlined process and eventually more successful. Again, from the education side, you are a student athlete. The education is incredibly important. Having a clear idea of the things that you're interested in and then what kind of degree you want to come out of it, come out of your university experience with is a critical component to it. What are your career aspirations? Are you looking to stay connected to your school? Are you looking to stay local to the places that you may eventually go to your university? Some university programs have a very strong alumni network, and other ones don't have as much of that kind of communal experience that you'll have after your degree is done. Those are the types of things that you want to identify as, is that something that's relevant to you? Because if it is, again, that will influence the kind of universities that you're looking into. Now moving into some of the strengths and weaknesses. From the golf side of things, you're looking at the four components of performance, where you stack up as your technical performances, your tactical performances, your physical, and your mental. The reason why you want to have a look at these strengths and weaknesses is because, again, that will help you decide on this program specific. There are some programs, sorry, that are more tailored towards player development. So if you feel as though there's areas that you want to continue to grow throughout your university degree, then a program that is more centered around development and developing you as a competitor will suit you better than a university that is perhaps in a stage where they're looking to win a national championship right this moment. If you're in a place where your game is in a really good spot to get in there and immediately start competing, awesome. You're probably looking at a university that has that type of program in place already to take you from where you are straight into competition and get into experiencing those levels of further competition that you have already. The education one's a really important one just because it is still a university. It is very rare now that athletes are getting into university if they don't have the grades to get in there in the first place. So, how's your GPA? What are your subjects or your average, sorry, your grades as well? What are the subjects that you excel in? What are the subjects that you perhaps need a little bit more support in? What kind of a learning style do you have? Would you rather be around a lot of students and have perhaps bigger class sizes and not as much social interaction, or do you want to be at a smaller class size and have more group-oriented learning and have resources that are available to you that way? Universities will have different kinds of support systems. It's really important to be clear about what it is you need to excel because the resources will be there, but it will need a little bit of tinkering around to suit up to what exactly you need. to be successful. And then finally, the extracurriculars. This begins to include some of the things that Kim was talking about as well, with location being, again, a very critical component to where you're looking at your university. Are there opportunities to play intramural sports, do other hobbies? Are there community events and volunteer work that you are doing right now that you feel really, really important to you further on down the road and would like to continue having those? These are all important things that you need to consider while you're assessing what your strengths and weaknesses are so that you can give yourself the best opportunity to continue to be successful. And then the limitations. The biggest one will be financial. Education is not cheap. It is going to require a significant investment on your part from a time perspective and financially. So be aware of where your budgets are. If you're capping out at a certain price, then eliminate the schools that are over that or eliminate the schools that don't offer a scholarship. So perhaps a Division III school that doesn't provide any athletic scholarship may not be an option for you. The education side of things as well. If you've identified that you want to do an engineering degree or you want to become a teacher after your university degree, and the specific institution that you're looking into doesn't offer that program, that will be a significant limitation on your ability to enjoy the process and the actual degree that you go through as well. And then finally, the location. Are you too close to home? Are you too far from home? Is it not actually going to give you the opportunity to practice and train to the degree that you want to? These are all really important limitations to consider ahead of going through the rest of the process as you narrow or as you clarify the things that you need before taking the further steps to identify the schools that you want to pursue. And then the last piece of the clarify component here, you've done all this great reflection on the things that you need. Now it's important to start documenting these things, keeping track of what it is that you want, what your ultimate goals are, and what are the things that are going to help you be successful or get in your way. Some of these key things that we've listed key stats here as something that you want to document. These are things that you need to have prepared to then be able to present to these coaches and these institutions that you're going through. Some of the key stats you can see on our slide here. This is a little quick screenshot of something that we'll go into some more detail later. This is our recruiting profile that Kim mentioned at the beginning. The key stats we have identified that are important are stats about you personally. This includes grades, includes golf, includes all the extracurriculars, and then also a self-statement that will help you continue to identify exactly what it is you are looking to get out of your university degree and what you hope the university experience will be like for you.
All right. So now that we've gone through extensively here, the clarify phase and gathering that information, getting clear on what you want your experience to be at the college level, we need to get into this expand stage. And really what this means is you got to do the research. There's a few parts to this, but you got to start gathering information. So you might already have an idea of some of the schools that are of interest to you, they're appealing. Now you need to know more about them. This is also the phase where you might start to explore other potential schools that you haven't considered before that could meet the criteria that you identified there in phase one. It's really important that you do this because you may not always have the opportunity to play at the schools that are your top choices. That's just the reality of playing college golf. There's a number of programs for sure, but there's a lot of athletes that want to play college golf. There's not enough spots for the number of athletes that want to play. And so that can depend on a lot of factors. Maybe that school's already got commitments to other athletes, things of that nature, or maybe there's some key elements that are missing at that school that you just off the top of your head think might be ideal. So we've got to expand that list. So the first thing that we're looking at really is to, actually, I'll just get you back up there, Scott, sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
My bad. The first thing we're going to do is a school assessment, and you need to know a few things here. So number one, are international students accepted? So making the assumption everyone here is in Canada, you're probably looking at a U.S. school. If you're not looking at a Canadian school, that's going to be your second option, or it might be your primary option. So will they even accept a student out of Canada? Secondly, are scholarships available? Scott mentioned it already. There might be athletic scholarships. If you can't get an athletic scholarship, do they have academic scholarships? Are you a student who could qualify for that? And then we mentioned it before, like what are the academic programs available at the schools that you're interested in, and what are going to be the grades that are required so that you could actually qualify and get accepted into that institution. So you need to start getting that information. You might have an idea of a great school and you start digging into this and you realize there's a couple of factors that aren't going to work. I got to find another option. All right. The second thing that we're going to look at in terms of gathering is what we call a team assessment. And there's a few things here that are really, really critical that you find out some information about. So one of these, and we mentioned it previously here, is this idea of the player development focus. Are you looking at a school where maybe player development is really low on their priority? In other words, they're expecting players to come in ready to go and they're not going to spend a lot of time working with you. That could be okay if you're ready for that. But if you're someone who knows, like, I want to work with coaches that are going to help me get a lot better and they're going to work with me regularly, then you need to be aware of that. So some programs, high player development focus, others, this is going to be low on their priority. You got to come in and be able to perform, and that's what they care about. Secondly, here related to this is you're looking at the number of players and the number of spots, and we'll dig into this just a touch later. But how many players does that team carry at that school? And how many spots are actually going to be available the year that you're entering your freshman year? Do they have a number of graduates, or is there only going to be one spot available? So you'll need to know some information about that. Last thing here is we're going to do what we call a scoring average assessment or a roster check. We'll dig into that in the next slide. But a couple of things in terms of gathering this information. You want to check the website. You want to talk to former or current players if it's possible. You're going to take a look at the coaching staff, see what they provide and kind of what their background is around the coaching support. And that'll help you kind of nail down the player development focus. And then, of course, the number of players, number of spots. For the most part, that's relatively easy to figure out. But if we move on here, we're going to walk you through an example of this roster check calculation. And it's really this. You want to know this because you want to find out if you could go into a school and actually break their starting five so that you would be playing in tournaments right away. And so you need to understand, one, your scoring average, and then two, we want you to take a look at players number 2, 3, and 4 in terms of their performance on that school and their scoring average for that targeted school. And we're going to walk you through a couple of examples here. So we're going to do kind of a West Coast example. So we got Washington State, the Cougars, and then we've got Oregon State, the Beavers. If we look at the base information here, like they're both Div 1 schools, they've got national rankings. Washington State was 125 here this past year, and Oregon State was 96. If we look at their players 2 through 4, you can see right away their scoring averages, 73.2, 73.4, 73.7 for Washington State, and you're a little lower on the Oregon State side, right? 72.1, 72.7, 72.7. You need to know this. If your scoring average is 75, you know right away looking at this, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to break the starting five with either of these schools. It's just not going to happen. Whereas if your scoring average is 71, maybe these schools aren't going to be competitive enough for what you're looking for in terms of your experience. So that's example number 1. Example number 2 here is kind of a Midwest, East Coast example. So you can see Kent State in Ohio, and we've got Barry University out of Florida. So national rankings here a little bit different. You'll also notice like Kent State, Div 1 school, Barry, a Div 2 school. So Kent State ranked 76 in Div 1, Barry ranked 27 in Div 2. If we look at their players 2, 3, 4, we can see like these scoring averages for Kent State, pretty low, 71.5, 72, 72.7. And then if we look at Barry, 72.5, 73.2, 73.4, you can see that difference. So again, the idea here, do you fit in somewhere in that 2, 3, 4 range, or are you pretty close so you could be fighting for that 5 spot? Or, you know, if you think I got to have a year to develop, will you be close in year 2 in order to break that starting 5? Really, really important to know this. It's going to help you make a decision on a school. All right. And then we're taking this information. We're also looking at this and kind of comparing it against what your other options are across, you know, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, junior college, and Canadian schools. But you do need to be aware of some other critical information. What's the team scoring average? Can you be close to that? How many tournaments are they actually playing in? And then, as we talked about already, how many roster spots do they have and how many players are graduating? If you're looking at a school where you're really, really keen on it and they've got 5 players graduating, your odds are significantly better than if you're looking at that same school and they only have one spot that's going to open up the year that you're going to school. So
Yeah,
information
absolutely.
for the most part that you can gather. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
No, I was going to say, I'm just going to jump in quickly, Kim. Just thanks. Both of these programs, part of the reason why we did these assessments is that, sorry, these examples specifically with these two schools is Corey Connors went to Kent State, multiple, or he's won on the PGA Tour, top 30 player in the world, stud. Adam Svensson, also a Canadian player from the West Coast. He's won on the PGA Tour as well, a very, very competitive and very, very successful professional, and he was a very successful university athlete. The way that both of those two players selected the universities to go to was very unique to them, and they would have done something very similar to this to identify which fit was best for them. And a Division two school still churned out a PGA Tour winner from Canada the same way that a Division one school did. So comparing against other options is a really, really important process.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Great point. And now we move on. Ultimately, where you're getting to in this expand phase is you're generating a list. You're trying to widen the options that you look at. And the way we think about this is you're generating a list of what we would call 3 to 5 dream schools. So that's that top row up there that you can see as an example. Your kind of middle 2 rows are your 8 to 10, what we would call ideal schools. So still really, really excellent. Lots of great things there. Maybe just not quite as great in your head as the dream schools. And then the bottom row would represent those 3 to 5 acceptable schools. And this might be a result of location or financing or some other factors, but you need to generate this list of 15 to 20 because in the next phase, this is going to change.
So now we get into phase three and the narrowing portion. With that list that you've just generated now, you have a very clear, almost checklist of schools that you are going to go out and now begin to contact. So the contact information, you're going to need to gather that information. How are you actually going to reach out to this coach? The vast majority of university coaches will have their contact information on the university athletics website. So you just go to Kent State University Athletics and you find the golf team and you'd be able to reach out and find the coach's information there to be able to contact them, submitting your personal information. So this would be your recruiting profile with all the key stats and information and tournament schedules that you need. The reason why the tournament schedule is significant is because it gives you an opportunity to continue to update these coaches and then also give them an idea of the kind of competitive background that you are going to have and the competitive experience that you are looking to have. The second piece with initiating contact, and this is really critical, is requesting meeting with the coach. You want to do this not immediately, but you want to do this really early on because it's really important to check to make sure you're compatible with not only the coach, but also the coaching philosophy of the team, the philosophy of the university. This is your opportunity to get in touch and answer any unknowns or any burning questions that you might have, and then identify how you take the next steps from there, from your initial contact into beginning to materialize your experience and getting into the university. Now, as you have begun to contact these schools and these programs, you'll have an opportunity to now compare against your list and these other people that you've contacted to filter down and match the schools with the programs that fit your wants and desires, your, and then also comparing them against the other schools that may meet these criteria on your list of other schools. Does a school that was originally in your dream school actually move down into an ideal or even an acceptable school because it doesn't actually match the needs that you have? Maybe a school that was initially maybe an accepting, you'd be okay with it, but not super excited about it. Once you get in touch, you realize that the philosophies of the program actually really align with your goals and what you want to continue to pursue through university. Once you begin doing this, this is where you begin to adjust your list. Now you're going to adjust this list that you originally had that could be anywhere from 12 to 15, 18 schools, and you're going to start narrowing that list down. You'll continue to refine this process as you go because you will have more opportunities to speak with coaches, to speak with current players, to speak with alumni, to figure out exactly what the best fit for you is going to be. It's really important to keep this component of phase three as part of your constant process because it'll be really easy to fall in love with the school really early on in the process because it's a really exciting process to figure out where you might go. You will require multiple follow-ups. You will require adjustments to your list to eventually find what the best university program is for you. It is difficult, but it's totally doable. You just have to keep putting effort in, and you will get to the ideal school that you're looking for in the end just by following the process. Now, finally, as you've gone through adjusting, as I was talking about, it's a continuing process to calibrate and eventually eliminate some of these schools. So our first bullet point there is think 80/20. What we mean by that is that 20% of the schools that you have on your list are going to require 80% of the time of your effort to continue to follow up because it's impossible to give every school a really nuanced level of attention if your list is 20 schools long. It's really, really important that you begin to do this and begin to prioritize some of these other places that you want to continue to connect with because these are the places that you may eventually go to. And you will want to be as well versed in their programs and have as good an understanding as you possibly can ahead of continuing to make some of these decisions in the next phases.
Yeah, I think what's really important there that Scott's mentioning is it's not going to be one connection. It's not going to be one contact. You're going to have multiple contacts with coaches, with programs to learn more and more. And every time you talk to them, you'll discover something else. And it either helps make it clear that they should be on your list or they should fall further down. And you only have so much time and energy, so you got to make sure you're making it valuable, which ties in with phase four. This is commit. Now, this is where we want to take the final steps. You've done a lot of hard work already. You've clarified what's really important to you. You started to expand and identify potential programs that you can be part of. You've gone through phase three where you're narrowing and really figuring out what's realistic versus what doesn't make any sense anymore. And now you're taking that really narrow version of your list, the 1 to 2 or the 3 to 4 kind of top potential schools, and you're doing a lot of connecting with the program. You're going to connect with the coach. You're going to connect with players. You're going to talk to the academic advisors at that school. You are trying to network with as many people as possible at that institution and program, and you're building trust. You're starting to create a foundation so that school, that program, those coaches, they know who you are and how you're going to be, and they feel comfortable with you. On top of that, you're going to start your school application process, which does mean you probably apply to multiple schools at this point, and that will take some time and energy on your part. You need to see if you can get into the school, and the only way to do that, you got to submit an application. Next here in terms of this is what we call accept and reject. So this is whether you're deciding whether you want to actually commit to a program or not. And you have to be aware there's going to be a number of signing constraints or specific deadlines to each school, to different like Div 1 versus Div 2, etc. And you want to be really aware of what those restrictions or constraints are so you can meet any requirements and not miss out because you missed the deadline that was really critical. On top of this, you got to stay in touch with the coaches that you are contacting at those schools, even if you're withdrawing from that school. It's really, really important that you keep that relationship intact and have a good connection with that coach. One, you want to have that reputation as being someone who's reliable, a good communicator, and trustworthy. Number two, you don't want to burn any bridges. You might go to a school for 1 year, and at the end of that year, you decide this actually isn't a good fit, and I'm going to transfer. And this is happening more and more nowadays. So it's really important that as much as possible, you're maintaining good relationships across the board.
Just to add on as well, one of the signing constraints that many people don't foresee is that some coaches will put deadlines on scholarship offers.
Yeah.
It is impossible to rank a scholarship offer if you have not already done the pre-work to assess your own list. So this is where some of those earlier phases are super, super critical Because if you have one of your top five dream schools offer you a scholarship and it's a deadline that you know you will not hear another offer before the end of that deadline, you are going to have to make a decision on whether or not you're accepting that offer or waiting to hear from these other universities. If you've already done the work beforehand, which you will have at this point, it'll make that decision quite a bit easier on whether you decide to accept that signing offer or decline it and wait to hear
Mhm.
more of the offers that you will get.
Yeah, really good comment, Scott. You always want to be in a position where you can make an informed decision and you don't feel like you're being pressured into a decision. You will get offers. Sometimes they're going to be fantastic offers. Sometimes they'll be less than fantastic offers. The more that you know about those schools and the fit in terms of the experience that you're looking for and what kind of environment you want to play in, the easier it will be to either say yes or no to that offer. All right. So last in commit, you got to take that final steps. You're picking your school. You've done the application process to get into the institution, and you're committing to the school. Now you really, really got to follow through with the coach and the school. And there's going to be a lot of stuff that happens. This is possibly the most important thing you can do once you commit to a school is continue to communicate with the coach and the institution. You want to make your life and your coach's life easier by staying in constant contact and communication once you've actually committed to that program. And it starts with confirming your acceptance, submitting any kind of required documents, and there'll be a lot. There's going to be a lot of paperwork. There's probably going to be some meetings. There's going to be documentation that you've never heard of that seems complicated. You're going to have to take care of it because if you don't, you're not going to be eligible to start and play with that team as soon as the semester begins. And so this is also why you want to stay in touch with the coach, is so they can help you through that process. You also want to try and stay in touch with the players so they can make that transition a lot easier for you. But this is your starting point in terms of building a relationship that's solid with the coach so that you're going to have a good experience when you're at the school. And so part of this as well is you want to stay in touch about what you're up to during the summer, the year before or the summer before you're going to start your freshman year. Let the coach know your tournament schedule, and they're probably going to ask for some of this, but you want to be on top of it and ahead of it. What kind of training activity you're engaged in? What are the things you got going on in the summer? If you're working, not working, traveling, etc. But you want that coach to know that you are fully committed, engaged, and they're not guessing what you're up to and whether or not you're fulfilling requirements to make sure you're ready to play when the fall starts.
All right. We've blown through a bunch of information here, and we're going to begin to wrap up our presentation here with a couple of things. First, Kim and I both mentioned already our recruiting profile. So this is one of our One Iota resources that we have put together. And this portion of our One Iota resource will be a free option to be able to create your own recruiting profile. The secondary resource that we have is that we are in the process of building out a recruiting course. So this is a mini course that you'll be able to pay online and take asynchronously that will give you more information and a little bit more tailored information for the actual process of some of the things that we couldn't go into detail because we didn't want to go beyond our allotted time for our webinar. Um, if you're able and would like to, I have put a link in the chat that we can do a little walkthrough, or we will do a little walkthrough right now with initially creating our recruiting profile and then what that profile will look like once it is complete. So if you care to follow along and do the process while I do it with you, the link is in the chat now. Feel free to follow that. If you'd rather just watch the webinar and then go and do that later, that is totally fine. Going to switch some views here just so that we can begin the next portion of our webinar here.
And while Scott's getting that caught up, set up, I'll just mention here as well, this course that we're developing on recruiting, it will walk you through step by step all of these phases. So it's just kind of a paint by number approach. It'll make that process really easy is our intention with that. And we intend to have that completed no later than the end of August.
All right. Okay. Is that the screen that I want to be showing here, Kim?
Yep, I think so.
Okay, awesome. So this is our One Iota Golf website. You can see here that we have two options. You can sign in or you can register an account. So what we're going to do here is just really quickly walk through this with you and just go through our and register an account. So you can see recruiting profile free, and we also have our stats tracking offering there as well. Anyway, so you'll just go ahead and select the recruiting profile, go in and submit your email, create a password, say that for now, and then here you are. Now you're in and you can begin to build your recruiting profile. So there are 9 pages that we will display as part of your recruiting profile. And so we'll take you step by step through going through all that information. So you'll go in, you'll select a profile picture. I won't do this now. It takes a long time to make sure I've got a flattering photo that I want to put in there. It'll take a while to search for that. In the meantime, we'll just put in our information here. This contact information is not going to be publicly available. It will only be available to the coaches that you select to share your profile with. Once you've put in your contact information in your profile, we move on to athlete information. So this is specific information about you. NCAA number, this is something that we will talk about in our recruiting course. It is a required personal ID identification number that needs to be registered through the NCAA if you go to an NCAA institution. We can go into more detail in our recruiting course there, so look out for that. Next, you'll go ahead and put in your graduation year for your high school graduation so that coaches that you share your profile with will know when you will be eligible for not only when you'll be eligible to join a team, but when you'll be eligible to be spoken to. So if you are currently in the anywhere earlier than the 10th or anywhere earlier than the 11th grade, coaches will have to wait until the summer before your 11th grade year to actually contact you. You can send them emails, but they can't reach out to you. So knowing when your graduation year is a really relevant component to your athlete information. Everyone can see that I'm really young and I'm graduating high school this year. You'll put your scoring averages in as well and your handicap index if you like. And then we have our rankings option. So if you have rankings that are world amateur golf rankings, rankings according to your tours that you're playing here, JPT, anything else. You can just go in and add a ranking, select what that is, and then that'll appear on your profile as well. This next page is one that we added as coaches because this is something that when coaches receive recruiting profiles is a really important component of the research that we as coaches do into you, the players, is not only what events have you played, but also what are the scheduled events that you want to play. If you've never played a provincial junior, we will want to know why that is, or if that's something that you will eventually play. If you've won a JPT event, that is something we want to know as well. So you can go in and add events. You can go and put in the name for every single event. JPT Tour Championship, for example. And if that's something that you win this year, that is something you'll absolutely want to have in there. We provide the option to link to the event. So actually take the Golf Genius URL that you'll have for the live leaderboard and put that in. And then you have the option to fill out the rest of the information that is here. One of the features that we'll provide, if you have a One Iota stats tracking account, when you put this information in for your stats, all of this will populate for you. So we'll streamline that process for you. If you don't have a One Iota stats account, you can still put in all the information from all of your events that you would like to display. I'm just going through this quickly just so that I can show you guys the steps here.
Mm-hmm.
The next one here is a really important one as well. As coaches, we may not be able to see you hit golf shots. And so we want to have an idea of what your golf swing looks like. If there's an opportunity for us to be able to get an idea of some of the technical things you may want support from, then we can get ahead of that and be prepared for when you arrive. Academic information, also really important. If you go by a GPA or just by an average, you have the option to put either of those in as well. The intended major is a good one as well, just for coaches to see because coaches will ask for that. Again, this is one of those things we talked about previously. Goes into the wants and desires portion of the clarify. If you say that you want to be a business major today, that does not mean you have to be a business major 3 years from now. It is just what you actually want to do right now and what interests you right now. Extracurriculars and awards. This is your opportunity to boast about your achievements, whether that be volunteering, additional awards that you've won doing extracurricular activities in sport or in the community. Feel free to add those in. Those only help.
Yeah, don't be
Additional
afraid of
pieces.
detail.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Kim. Don't be afraid of detail because that's the other side of things here too, is that if you're sending an email to a coach or you are sending this recruiting profile to a coach, this is going to be their first impression of you and the first
Yeah.
opportunity to get some information. We as coaches are very busy, but if we have an opportunity to sit down and read and learn about you, we will absolutely take the time to do that. And it'll be more exciting for us if we get to know you a little bit better than just staring at your NCAA ID number, for example. And the really cool component of what we provide in our recruiting profile as well as a personal statement. This is your opportunity if you feel as though you haven't been able to put enough information to highlight your strengths, and why you think the university and you will be a good fit for each other. This is your opportunity to continue to describe anything that you'd like to the coach and or to any other member of the staff there that you'd like them to see.
Yeah, and this is, the personal statement is one of those tools that we would use to determine whether you're a good fit philosophically with the program that we're operating, and all coaches would go through something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Then the final step here is our profile ordering. This will make more sense in a moment when I show you guys what the profile looks like. But this is your opportunity to mix and match further if you'd like to display your own information in a slightly different way. So if you want to have your results higher because you've just won 3 events on the JPT and you want to highlight your great summer, you can stick that right on top, right underneath the critical information. Your basic information and athlete information will stay exactly where it is because that's what coaches need to see immediately. No use to us to see if you're shooting 68 every round if we don't even know who you are. So those information pieces will stay the same, but you have the option to shuffle any of the other components of this. And then you're done. So obviously I haven't filled out a whole lot of information there as we walk through it quickly. So just quickly show you what your profile will look like. So when you go to share your profile, this will be what your profile looks like. You'll have you'll obviously have your profile picture in there, your name, and this is your opportunity to decide whether or not you allow your contact information to be visible or not. If you have allowed permission for your contact information to be viewed by a coach, there will be an option for them to see that contact information, so your name or phone number. Otherwise, otherwise it will remain hidden. So as you can see, athlete information goes over all the pieces that you would have inputted yourself. Your personal statement. In this example, Ryan has decided this is something that he wants early on. So he's shuffled things around in such a way that his personal statement is immediately following his critical information that will not change. Then goes into highlights, then into his results. Here he doesn't have any upcoming events, but this is where you could put this in. For example, if you're playing your provincial amateur coming up in the either this next week if you're in British Columbia or coming up later this month, you could put that in there so coaches know to look out for the competitions that you're in. Once you've uploaded your swing videos, they'll all be here, and you'll be able to just flick through all of the different options for what you're looking for. And the coach will be it'll be really easy on the coach to be able to find this information about you and look for your swing videos. They'll all just be in this one place for you. Additional academic information, and then the extracurriculars and awards.
Scott, real quick question. How does a coach get access to this?
Okay, that's a great question. So this is what your profile looks like. If you go into your dashboard, Oh, sorry about that. Here is where you will see the analytics of your profile. If you have left any of the profile sections incomplete, you will not have a green check mark. You'll have a little red X just to remind you of what's available, what's not available. You have the option to make your profile public or not. This is where we can share the contact information and the ability to even just share it yourself. This profile, although through the One Iota app, will be visible for coaches. You literally just hit the copy, it's copied to your clipboard. You can put it in an email and send it to a coach, and it will be visible immediately. The preview of your profile is just the view that we had previously, but this is what you have additional access to be able to see what you're looking at. 17 people have looked at Ryan's profile, and one of those coaches has saved that profile. So when coaches view your profile, the only thing that they will see will be this page with the information that you have provided. They will have the option up here in the track button to save your profile, and that way they can keep your information pinned so that when they come back and look at the events that you had scheduled, you can see, oh, actually they've played their provincial amateur now, so you can see the results that have come up there. Alrighty, sorry, I went on a little long there, just a little bit past our hour mark.
So that really does take us to the end of the presentation. We've got, I guess, a couple of quick questions for you. Maybe we'll just actually do one of those.
Yep, that's
Second
fine.
one. Yeah, so we've presented a bunch of information. Just in the chat, can you just put up for us, how confident are you that you can navigate the recruiting process now? So 1 would be like not confident at all, and a 10 would be like, oh, I'm super confident. I totally get this now. And if people are just willing to just quickly write in there a 1 through a 10 and just give us a sense of kind of where you're at.
Nice, an 8 in here early. Thank you very much for.
All right. So people might be struggling to access the chat there, but it's at least with the one that we got who's responded, it seems like, okay, this is pretty clear. All right.
Yeah, another 7 as well.
Okay, good. Yeah, a lot more to explore. That's true.
Yeah, tons more.
Hopefully we made it clearer than it was before you started the webinar. That's what we're going for. Ideally, we're getting you somewhere in that 7, 8 range. But the reality is you're going to have to start going through the process before it really becomes super clear.
So for those of you who are more are in the camp of still wanting to explore a little bit more and get more information, this is my email. What you can do is send an email to me and just indicate your interest in taking the recruiting course. And we will make sure to keep you updated on when the recruiting course gets posted, and we will address the additional information that we couldn't address even in the 65 minutes that we've taken up of your time. And from there, we will take a deeper dive into the phases and then a deeper dive into the steps that you need to take to be able to get from where you are now to being able to confidently navigate your way through the recruiting process. So that's my email. Feel free to bombard it with questions as well. We'll keep you up to date with what's going on with the recruiting course. And then once that's up and live, we'll be all set and you'll be absolute stars at managing all of the recruiting.
We hope. All right, that's it for us. So I don't know if we still got, Ryan, are we comfortable opening it up to questions? If anyone has anything, we're happy to stick around for a minute or two if that's possible. If not, as Scott said, his email is there. You can reach out directly. But thank you for joining us.
Yeah, if anybody does have any questions, feel free either to pop them in the chat or you can just unmute yourself and kind of ask a question. Yeah, go for it. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions, we can wrap it up then, and then like the
Oh,
boy said there, you can just send Scott an email, and he'll be happy to help you guys out. Um,
Ryan, sorry, we do have one quick question here.
Go for it.
Someone's just asked if they have to play AJGA events to get coaches' attention. Um, it's a great question. You do not have to go south of the border to get coaches' attention in the NCAA. Playing provincial and national events are really important and are weighted very heavily. Um, those are events that are really important. JPT events as well now, with having opportunities to have eyeballs with some of the exemptions that they've been able to generate with exemptions into exemption into the PGA Tour Americas event, for example. Coaches will be able to see at those field strength and understand the level of competition that you're facing. Um, AJJ events are good events to take, of course, but they are not critical for being recruited into the States. I myself never played an AJJ event and was recruited to several D1 schools. Um, Lots of the players that are successful in the NCAA, if they're north of the border, haven't played AJGA events. Um, Adam Hadwin's an older example now. Obviously, he's been on tour for a number of years. But when he went and did his university degree in Louisville, he did not have an extensive AJGA resume of competition before getting recruited and going to play.
Mhm. And again, like just reiterating what Scott said earlier, it's like you need to play important events. So winning your local club championship, as great an experience as that will be, is not going to be heavily weighted compared to competing in, placing, or winning a provincial championship, for example.
Cool. Any other questions?
All right.
No, all good. Cool. Well, I've recorded this thing here, and I will send it off to everybody again tomorrow. So if ever you're wanting to go back and take a look, you'll have access to it. Thank you again to Kim and Scott from One Iota Golf. It's great to have them and kind of get run us through these webinars. The last three webinars have been great. This one applies less to me, but the first two I learned a lot of great stuff, and can hopefully help me answer some questions now for college stuff because I get a lot of them. But yeah, no, thank you guys very much, and I will send that off to you guys in the next day or so. Just headed to Century Pines for our next tournament tomorrow, so it might not be tomorrow.
There you go. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your attendance, and hopefully you
All
found
right.
something of value.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, good luck if any of you are playing Century Pines, and hope to hear from you soon.
Have a good one, guys.